Welcome to the Connected Teamwork Podcast by Growth Leaders Network. How do we learn to truly thrive together? How do we stay connected to our authentic selves, each other, and our purpose as a team, especially when challenged? How do we unlock the deeper levels of group intelligence? Enjoy this episode of the Connected Teamwork Podcast and learn practical tools to evolve the connectedness of your team to its next level. Teamwork Podcast.
Welcome to the Connected Teamwork Podcast, episode 31. I'm your host, Hilke Faber. I'm here today with Tony McClelland. Tony, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
It's a true honor for us to be with you today. We're going to explore a little bit more about Tony in a moment. But first, I want to introduce this podcast again, as I do in most episodes. Connected Teamwork Podcast is intended to help us to become aware of what's possible within us and with each other and with our purpose when we intentionally connect to what's truly important to ourselves, within ourselves, with each other, and with our purpose. And how we do that together in this beautiful construct of a team being here loosely defined as a group of people that are together for a purpose. I'm your host, Hilke Faber. I'm here with Tony and Tony McClelland. I was introduced to by my co-host, Carson Heddy, and I've had a few conversations with Tony since then. And Tony is one of those amazing human beings that stays with you long after you've crossed paths. He has got this amazing background in criminal justice, special education, works with C-level leaders, is an expert advocate and consultant coach for compassion, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and has done such great work throughout her life in helping us to become more connected to each other, focusing on compassion in all kinds of circumstances, in criminal justice, special education, and in the C-suite. She lives in London and Wales, and she actually joined us today from the UK. So it's going to be 8 p.m.-ish where she's at. So I appreciate you being with us at this later time of day while I get to enjoy the midday of Phoenix, Arizona. So it's amazing in technology that this is possible. So Tony, let's jump into this first question of today's podcast, which is, tell us about what you've learned about connectedness in your life and leadership.
What have I learned? Well, first of all, can I just say thank you for having me? And when you said that, I last beyond the conversation, I think it's the effect of the fairy dust, the Tony's fairy dust, the little sprinklings that have stayed with you. So what have I learnt in, about connectedness in leadership? I have learnt that everything is about people. Absolutely everything. If I make a decision, it not only impacts me, it has a knock-on effect on others and stakeholders and the wider groups. If you think about policies, they're all about social, whether it be ESG, environmental, social and governance, CSR, the S is for social, the sustainable development goals, it's about people. DEIB is about how you deal with people, so if you kind of think about the social aspect, you're definitely going in the right direction. And, the social aspect, when we think about social values, social capital, this is the key. And so really just thinking about people. And when I led large teams, I'm a lover of the 80-20 rule, the Pareto 80-20 rule. And, how I work Pareto in this particular example is that when I lead large teams, I spend 80% of my time giving to my teams. And 20% of the work that I do is the things that only I can do, or that I have to do. So 80% is being there for them. And I think that, the more you connect with people, the more you understand them as individuals, be interested in them. I'm always intrigued by people. So that's what I've learned. The more you understand people, the better and the easier life and your work becomes.
I can't help but being curious about where your interest in social and people started. How did that get formed and shaped throughout your life? How did that start, and what tell us a bit about your life journey, if you would mind?
Wow. Well, when I was younger in school, I was always interested in, social studies. We used to have social studies then, sociology. These were subjects that I was really interested in how people tick, how people work. And, people that know me know that I've got a couple of things that may have played a part. And one was the fact that I was, I was middle child. So I had middle child syndrome. So that meant that actually, I do say that lightheartedly and as a joke, but what that meant was that, it was always the younger or the older person that was in favor. So the middle person kind of got forgotten about or kind of felt a little bit insignificant, almost as if they could disappear, not be invisible. And so, it's only when I think back, it didn't have an impact at the time, but only when I think back, I think that, well, maybe how did I behave then as a middle child? The other thing is that I'm a Christmas baby. And so being a Christmas baby, that means that my birthday is around that time. And again, an opportunity for people to forget me,
Yeah.
So these things, maybe they have played a part, maybe they haven't played much of a part. But I think there was a time in my life where I sat down and I thought about, what's the significant pieces of my story that go back? And I think that one of them was really, really clearly, my father. He passed away 15 years ago, but he left a legacy. And it was only after he passed, that I really understood the connectedness that he had with people and the difference that he made to those particular people. And I felt that, I wanted to continue his legacy. So for me, that was a real important part of it as well. But some of it is by experience too. So some of the things that I've seen or some of the work pieces that I've done and how it's impacted. So, that's just it. That's just, there was a time as well, a few years back, where I thought about, well, actually, what have you done all week, Tony? What I was doing was I was championing one person, representing somebody else, being an ally for someone else. And actually, I didn't meet my business goals. And I thought, Tony, what are you doing? But I realized that what I was doing was what I was being drawn to. And that needs to be central in my business. So being very people orientated and DEI being the center is key.
So deeply drawn to that. I am very curious about specifically how your dad inspired you to have that deep rootedness in people. Can you tell us a bit more about what he was like or what he transmitted to you?
Well, he was a bit of a sage, really, because he, was kind of like somebody that everybody went to. He used to say to me, well, is there something wrong? And I'd say, no, Dad, there's nothing wrong. And he would say, right, okay, well, when it gets worse, I don't want to know. And at that point, I would automatically spill everything, because he was somebody that you really wanted on side. If things weren't going great, you felt really good there. He would give me lots of advice. Even now, I just think about some of the things he would say, and he's still guiding me in that way even now. But he was terminally ill. And when he was terminally ill, I said, look, I know that you have a will, but what is it that you actually want? And he said to me, I just want to know that you're all right, that everybody's all right, and I will be all right. And I thought, well, wow, being selfless at this moment in time is really, really unique. It was a really unique thing. And when he passed away and we had the memorial, the funeral and everything, there was people that was coming, that was just coming. And talking and talking about all this. He done this and he done that, and he brought us together and he done all these things. And I just felt like, I didn't even know who half of these people were. I was like, who are you and who are you? I've never seen you before. So he went about his work very quietly. Yeah, it was just kind of, it was really interesting. And I just felt like this is his legacy. And if he has that kind of impact on people, making a difference, then I want to too. I want to continue that. So that's kind of a little bit about that and how, and it gives me great comfort as well to be able to do that.
I'm imagining being, at either of our funerals and what we want people to say. And I think that's such a, powerful contemplation that anyone can do at any time. And I love the clarity of which you are with which you are speaking and with which you are living. So tell us about what might have been some of the challenges that you have worked through as you take a stand for belonging, for diversity and inclusion, for standing for people. Because it sounds great, and you talk about fairy dust, and it sounds like it's all like roses and sunshine, and I probably
But it is.
Maybe tell me about that. Maybe it is all sunshine and roses. Tell me about that. And what have you learned? What's giving you the wherewithal to be able to do that every day?
Well, the thing about it is it's about continuing to learn. And I'm always one of these people, I continually want to learn, because when you stop learning, you stop growing. And, I can remember times where I can remember one specific challenge where it was an organization. I was propelled in to do this piece of work. There was no leadership there. They had inspections coming up. Everything was going on and the culture was really poor, and it was just me. And I just thought, wow, in fact, I could think of another one as I speak about this. And I needed to go through a situation, but actually I knew that I couldn't do it on my own. I knew that it may not be pretty. The outcome may not be pretty. But there was not an ounce of me that wanted to step down or that wanted to back away from that and say, no, I'm not going to do it. The people needed it. The people wanted it. And I felt like I owed it to them to be able to do this piece and see it through, even though it wasn't good for me. And so it was about working with some great integrity, because you do what is right for others. It may not necessarily always be what's right for you. If it's good for you, then that's good. And, somebody once asked me, share a regret. And I said, I don't have regrets, only learning experiences, because even that, I learned so much from it. Even that, when I look back, I think, well, if I hadn't have done it, how would I know what that through piece was like? How would I know what that piece would be? Do I know if I'd be scratched and bruised, or if I'm going to come out unscathed, or will I have to fall on my sword? How will I know if I don't go through it?
How will I know if I don't go through it?
Absolutely. And so, for me, it's almost like I made that sacrifice because I wanted to learn. I made the sacrifice, and it's almost like I made that sacrifice to save others so that I can tell the story, And so all you can do sometimes is prepare yourself. So, I put my armor on, gathered my team, make sure I had the best team around me, put on my best shoes and put my best foot forward, and hope for the best. Do the best that I can do in that time, because I'm, as a leader, you can't step down, you can't step away. You've got to move into what is presented into you, and you've got to lead from the front.
We're going to take a short break in a moment. I'm speaking with Tony McClelland, who is a critical friend, advocate and consultant, and beinger of compassion and belonging, standing with people. The question I'm going to explore after the break, that I want to explore, is where do you find the wherewithal to go into challenges like that? That sense of integrity. Where does that come from within Tony, so that we may all maybe discover more of that place within ourselves? See you after this short break.
You are listening to the Connected Teamwork Podcast by Growth Leaders Network. Do you want to learn more about building the next level of connectedness in your team? Please contact Growth Leaders Network on LinkedIn. And now, back to the show.
So there you are, Tony, in the middle of that challenge with that team where there was a poor culture, and there you are. You had gathered your team, your good shoes, I remember that. And so where do you find the wherewithal to stand in it, to lean into it, to not go and disappear?
I think as a leader, you've got to be courageous. If you're not courageous as a leader, then it's no good, because there are going to be courageous moments. There are going to be times where you have to be brave. There are going to be times when you don't want to do things, but you have to role model and lead the way, and sometimes, show the way. And, sometimes, I just find that that's really, really what's needed. You need to really lead the way, be a role model, be authentic in your leadership. If you don't know, say, listen, I don't know. It's okay. Because if you are trusted and respected as a leader, those people will come. Just like I rallied my team of people, they knew that I would protect them, if need be. They knew that. So it wasn't a problem for me to rally the best team around to make sure that I came out unscathed. But what is it? It's that underlying notion of curiosity, I guess, and somebody once said to me, if there's a will, there's a way for it to happen, so and I'm that person that people come to when there's a problem, and I kind of embrace it, and I just take it, and I just say, well, look, if you got a problem, I usually know someone that can help if I can't help. And if I don't know anyone that can help, then you really have a problem.
So I want to go back to this experience of people in your team feeling protected. What do you do, or how do you create this sense of safety for the people around you as a leader, or also advising others with that? How do you do that?
Well, I think you've got to respect people. You don't have to, I know it's difficult to accept everybody and everything, but you've got to respect, and, you've got to connect with them. You really do need to listen, focus on building those relationships, have those difficult conversations. In fact, I shouldn't even call them difficult, because if you frame it as a difficult conversation in your mind, it is a difficult one. It's just another conversation that needs to be had. And the more you build those relationships, the easier those conversations become, and there's plenty of opportunity to have those conversations too. So I think that that's really key. Keep building the relationship, the social value, social capital. It's all about people. And if you get the people element of it right, then you're going in the right direction, because I've spent 30 years in this space. I started off with criminal justice, understanding behavior. Then I moved to specialist education, because I wanted to understand how people learn, took on board learning. So I was principal in specialist education provisions. And then I went into social care, because I wanted to understand how environmental factors have an impact on how people learn. And so I, oversaw, registered managers in children's homes. So for me, that was the start of me creating a model to go into organizations and help them to be able to better understand their people. So I've created a model which is called the BLEND model, BLEND, B for behavior, innate, taught, learnt, habitual. L for learning, kinesthetic, audio and visual. E for environmental factors, which will come into play when hybrid and home working scenarios. N for network, because we're all influenced by people around us. So have we got positive people around us? And D, which is your favorite bit, your own self-awareness. And D for development. So your own self-awareness. Do you know where you are in your own journey? And not everybody does. Not everybody does. I know that I have always been. And the pandemic enhanced that even more, because I needed to center myself and stay grounded, recognize what do I need to make it through, all these things. And it really does come down to self-awareness, understanding yourself, understanding your emotions, your feelings. What do they mean? A scenario that happens, go back and reflect on it. How could I have done better? What could I have done?
I love it. I'm thinking of your experience, your early experience in criminal justice. And I'm wondering what you learned there about compassion and about understanding of behaviors from that experience. Can you give us an example of what was that like? Take us into that movie.
Well, you see, I'm going to, if I can, just take it from a different point, because at one point I was thinking about, what's the connecting thread through all of my work, the criminal justice, specialist education and the care. And I found that compassion was the key piece. It was the winner every time. It was the common denominator. And I'll tell you why. Because in criminal justice, when I was in operations and working with young people in the criminal justice system, it kept me safe. It kept me safe amongst some young people that were in gangs, etc. It kept me safe because I connected with them, I understood them, I listened with my eyes and my ears. So it kept me safe. In the specialist education area, when I was managing large teams, it brought a real desire for effectiveness and efficiency and productivity, just by giving 80% of myself to my teams. I'd never miss an appraisal, never miss a one-to-one, all of this. And when I was working in instance in the communities, it brought calm and resolve. So even in social care environments, it brought calm and resolve just by being compassionate. So I found that no matter what I was doing, compassion was really following me around. Yeah. Or was it following me? Or was it leading the way? This is the thing. But it was only years ago that I realized that that's a common thread, and I need to lean into the compassion piece a little bit more, because that's where the answer is.
So compassion is the winner every time.
Absolutely.
And leaning into compassion. So today, and in your work today and in the world today, what does leaning into compassion mean for you? And maybe also, where is your growth edge when you think about leaning into compassion today?
Okay, well, what is compassion? Compassion is taking action to relieve the suffering of others. Okay, so that's in compassionate leadership. And if you're a compassionate business, for me, that means relieving the suffering, when we're thinking about the environment. So positive action towards the environment as well as people. So we'll bring together those two pieces around compassion. So when I think about the other aspects of compassion, I've got some compassionate C's. And, Deloitte has 6 C's of inclusive leadership. But when I think of compassion, I think of other C's as well. I think of community. And if you think about them, they all begin with a CO, meaning you and I or us. Yeah. So community, communication, co-creation, co-production, consultation. They're all a C and a CO and a co. So when you lean into those, you're going to be going in the right direction. If you're, leading others or managing others, think about coaching rather than telling, encouraging others. So another CEO. So they're all there. And your CO is connected. So that connects it all together, all the C's and all the O's together. And you've got connected. So maybe the universe is saying I'm in the right place right now.
It's beautiful. The CO party.
Yeah.
CO journey. It's amazing. It's amazing.
That's right.
So what would you say to somebody who is feeling not in CO right now, disconnected in some way, right? For whatever reason, maybe there's been a tremendous challenge. Maybe something has happened with them that's really hard. Maybe whatever it is, we can think of endless scenarios in today's world. What would you say to them? What would you say to them?
To take a pause. To just pause for a moment and take a moment to really try and connect yourself, understand yourself. Why am I feeling this way? Is there some energy around me that is creating this? Why? Because for me, what I am always doing is I'm always questioning myself, as in not doubting, but questioning in a way, why do I feel this way? Why is this something that I'm constantly thinking about? And I try to really get to the bottom of it. And, so this is really it. Question yourself in terms of explore the whys of why am I doing this? What's the reason? Why am I here? Do I like it here? Do I want to be here? Because actually, when we think about people's motivators, and I just explained about the blend model as well. If you use the blend model, it's an assessment of, really connecting with people. Because normally people lean into one area out of all of those letters or another. So environment might be the biggest thing to connect with them. Or it could be a behavior that is a learned behavior from when they were younger. So really, if we lean into this, we'll be able to get closer, much, much closer to the answer.
What I'm hearing, Tony, is you allow yourself to get really close with yourself.
Yeah.
And you invite others to do the same. So when we are feeling disconnected, it's a telltale to say, hey, listen, here's an invitation for you to sit with yourself, and extend that compassion that you've been talking about so beautifully, Tony, in this podcast, to yourself first, which help the understanding itself will help to relieve some of the suffering that you might be facing.
Because you can hide from others, but you can't hide from yourself. So you've got to be honest with yourself as well,
Yes. So much said. We are getting to the very end of our conversation, which flew by. What would you like to say by way of closing, Tony?
I would like to say that we can all do it. We can all lead with care and compassion. And I'd just like to share that the only qualification required to lead with care and compassion is to qualify as being human. We all have it in us. Be compassionate with ourselves, and then it's easier to be compassionate with others. We don't have to have doctor, nurse, or care in the title of our name to care and be compassionate.
Thank you for reminding us of what may be our true job in this life, to be compassionate and caring, for which we're all qualified, assuming we're human.
That's right.
Thank you for that, Tony. It was a beautiful conversation. I've been talking to Tony McClellan, critical friend, advocate for compassion, in diversity and inclusion, such a rich background, criminal justice, care, now working with C-suites, people, working in general in the work world, and reminding us that when we lead with care and compassion, we're on the right way. Thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to the
Thank
Connected
you.
Teamwork podcast. We will be back next Monday with episode 32. And thank you, Tony, again for being with us today.
Thank you.
I am your host, Hilke Faber, and I will see you next time. See you.
Thank you for listening to the Connected Teamwork podcast by Growth Leaders Network. Take a moment to reflect on what you learned today that can help build your team. Also, if you like, think about one of your team members and what you appreciate about them. Let them know. Enjoy connecting more deeply to what is great about them. And see you next time at the Connected Teamwork podcast.